welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our May virtual user group today. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Shay Bagwell, your customer marketing manager with IBI. And with me today, I also have Anita George, who is part of our ATS team, and she will be your presenter. We thank you guys for taking the time out to be with us today, and we've got a lot of great content in store for you. We're switching gears a little bit today and going down the data route with the semantic layer that Anita is going to be showing you guys here shortly. A few housekeeping items before we get started. As a reminder, the webinar is being recorded. You will receive a copy of the recording along with Anita's presentation and mine tomorrow. That will be an email that is sent out to you and have a link to the presentations and a link to the recording. You can also find the recording on our YouTube channel, and you can also find it on our website under the on-demand section. So 3 ways that you can get a copy of it. Please utilize the Q&A feature to ask Anita any questions that you may have during her presentation. We will make sure that we carve out enough time for her to address those questions and get them answered for you. So please submit those. And I think that's it for housekeeping. A couple of things I want to share with you guys. I'm going to share my screen and dive into, one second, I just had it and I lost it again. Sorry about that, guys. Here it is. Okay. I want to cover a few marketing items with you guys real quick. There we go. Alrighty. So as I said today, Anita is going to be covering some WebFOCUS Semantic Layer. So switching gears a little bit and going down the data route today. So we're super excited to hear from her here shortly. But in the meantime, a few reminders, resources that are available to you guys as a customer. IBI.com is your one-stop shop for all things IBI. So be sure to be checking out our website every now and then. Head out there. We have lots of blogs, new events that are being posted under the event section. You can find data sheets, product news, our doc site. You can also access your IBI support out here and put in a ticket if you have any concerns or issues that you're dealing with. You can access the community and our education platform from the website. So again, just a great resource for you. If you're looking for something, be sure to head out to the website and see if you can find it and direct you from there. As I did mention, you can access the support portal from out there. So this is where you would put in a ticket should you need to. Also with the support portal, you can find access to documentation. Our product downloads are out there. New product information and notifications are out on the support portal. And just any other useful links that you guys may be interested in or may be looking for. And then again, as I mentioned, this is where you would submit your ticket. We do have events posted out there under the events section. So all of our virtual events, our Focus Fridays, our virtual user groups, and any other virtual webinars that we may be hosting, you can find out there and are able to register for. And also, as I mentioned at the beginning, all of our recordings are posted in the on-demand section. So if you miss something, aren't able to attend a webinar, or just looking to replay one, you can also find those in the on-demand section. And then we also have the in-person events posted out there, which leads me to our in-person event this year. We Summit 2026, we are headed back to New York for not 1, but 2 days. So we have 2 full days of action-packed of content for you guys. We're super excited about this event. It's going to be great. You guys have asked for longer summits, and we're getting there. Like I said, we're able to host for 2 days this year, and we're thrilled about this. We're going to have breakout sessions. We're going to have hands-on labs. You're going to have the expert room. There's going to be a partner pavilion. You're going to get to network. You're going to have customer stories to listen to. There's a special guest who's attending and a special session with them. You're going to see our customer panel. So we've got a lot of great things packed into 2 days, and all we need is you to be there. Registration's open. The agenda is live. You can head out to either of these links and view the full agenda. And like I mentioned, we have more breakout sessions. We have more hands-on labs this year. So a lot of great content. There is something for everyone, whether you're a WebFOCUS user or whether you're on the data intelligence, data quality side. every industry. If you're in healthcare, if you're in transportation, if you're in retail, we've got something for everyone. So we'd love to see you there. If you have any questions about Summit, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those. If you need some documentation for your management to get approval, please reach out to me. I'm happy to provide that as well. Also, we have a link for hotels that are available in the area that you guys are able to look through and what works for you and your budget. There's several hotels that partner with our event space that we're hosting. So just a couple of other additional items of why you should attend. As I mentioned, great strategic networking. You're going to get face-to-face time with IBI experts, along with learning from your peers and hearing from your peers. You're going to see some roadmap stuff. You're going to see new features of the upcoming releases. So that in itself is super exciting to be a part of. You're going to have those hands-on workshops to participate in. And then, again, just executive insights. I mentioned there's a special guest coming. You're going to hear some keynotes from those industry titans like that, and it's worth it. So we really hope to see you guys there. Hope that you can make it. And again, if you have any questions or need any additional information, please reach out to me personally, and I am happy to discuss that with you. Additional resources, the IBI community. This is another great spot for you if you're not familiar with the community. Please join. Another really great learning opportunity for you, especially new people on your team. A lot of great peer-to-peer learning out there. You guys go out there, you ask questions, your peers answer that. They may have run into the same issue and they found a fix or a hack or whatever the case may be. We also have our IBI experts who post articles out there. So a lot of great content coming from those folks. You'll see new articles every week. We're also making a lot of IBI announcements there too. So again, if you're not part of the community, it's free to join. You just log in or just register your email and log in. And we're happy to have you in there. So please be sure to join if you haven't. Spread the word to your colleagues if they're not a part of it as well. IBI education. So you guys should know by now, we do have our new education platform up and running. Every quarter, there is new content posted. I just put in some new courses yesterday, actually, on WebFOCUS security. So if you guys are interested in any of that, please head out there, check it out. If you need access to the education platform, please also either reach out to me personally or send an email to education@ibi.com. I'll get it there as well, and happy to get you into the platform so you have access to all of this free training. And like I said, every quarter we upload and put in new content. So be sure to check out the platform and all the training that's available. If you are on social media, give us a follow. We're on LinkedIn, X, and we have a YouTube channel. We'd love to see you out there, engage with us. We post a lot of IBI updates out there as well. Any IBI news, the latest and greatest. So give us a follow on those. And as I mentioned, we do post the on-demand webinars on the YouTube channel, so you can access those there as well. And then hopefully you're getting all of this great information from us in the first place. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out. We have the invites for the virtual user groups and Focus Fridays. We have the Summit email. So hopefully you're seeing all of those in your inbox. If you're not, please also let me know. We want to make sure that you guys are staying in the know for all things that are IBI, so that you can sign up for things, be a part of all the great things that we have and all the great things that are coming. So check your spam if you're not getting it, and if you don't see it in there, please let us know. All right, so big goals for 2026. You can achieve them faster by moving to WebFOCUS 9.3, where you will get access to new features like the AI-driven accessibility, the scalability, heightened security. So we really want you guys to be on this latest release, and you can do so by the upgrade program. It is time to make your move for that and join that upgrade program. If you register today, you'll take our free self-assessment, then you'll get the expert insights and then plans to complete that upgrade so that you can take advantage of those new features and capabilities. So it's a super easy process that we have in place for you guys, and we walk alongside you while you do it. And so it's a great opportunity. We'd love for you guys to take advantage of it and get to those latest releases. And in addition to that, we also have the WebFOCUS AI Bootcamp. And this is your opportunity to really learn from those experienced professionals and our IBI AI gurus that we have on our team. You will get practical insight and personalized support during the boot camp. So we'd love for you to secure your spot here. We want you to jumpstart your AI journey. We know AI is super hot right now in a lot of industries and in the market. So we don't want you to get left behind. Be up to date with AI, develop those expertise in those critical areas. So let us know if you're interested in either of these programs. At the end of the webinar, your evaluation form will pop up. Those links are also available in there that you can sign up for each of these programs, and or I can send you where to go myself. So if you're interested in either of those, let us know. And with that, I am done. And I'm going to turn it over to Anita now to get started on her content. And if you guys have any questions, you just please reach out. All right. Thank you. Okay, Anita, over to you.
Thank you, Shay. All right. Greetings, everyone. Glad you could join us this morning. And let's get on with the content of today's presentation. I think if you've been following any of the tech articles of late, there's one theme that resonates, and that is AI-fueled analytics, AI governance, AI anything. So I think this is an appropriate topic for this time. In today's session, we look at the semantic layer. What is it? Why is it important? We look at the building blocks of a semantic layer, and also look at the WebFOCUS semantic layer, sort of a comparison, if you will, of the WebFOCUS semantic layer and the semantic layer of some of the other cloud database vendors. And then we'll look at some of the advantages of the WebFOCUS semantic layer, the goal being to help you get to AI-fueled analytics. Large language models are notoriously prone to hallucinations when they attempt to query raw database schemas without sufficient context. So the semantic layer is the bridge between the large language model guesswork and governed reality. So what is the semantic layer? It is really an abstraction bridge between, like I said, raw data and business users. The goal really is to provide a business-friendly view of data with standardized definitions and calculations of metrics. This ensures that users have governed access to data across a variety of endpoints. Another way of putting or looking at the semantic layer is it's a universal translator, converting complex business structures into familiar business terms. If you talk about revenue or incurred loss, no matter who reports off of these different metrics, they're going to get the same consistent calculations for those metrics. Let's look at the various building blocks of a semantic layer, or the components. You need dimensions. Dimensions provide the categorical context. If you think about a SQL query, these are the fields that you use for sorting or grouping. It provides information about who, where, and when. Metrics are governed calculations. Again, the whole concept of a semantic layer is to have governed calculations, so you have a single version of truth no matter who is consuming this metric within different business areas. One important aspect of a semantic layer is hierarchies. Oftentimes, you want to do things like trend analysis. You want to compare a particular metric across a quarter, or you want to compare current year to prior year. So there's always a time dimension or a time hierarchy that is part of a semantic layer. But hierarchies can be more than temporal. It can be geography-based hierarchies, product-based hierarchies. There could be multiple hierarchies. It determines the navigation path for the questions that you want to ask. And what it really does is when you ask certain calculations, hierarchies tells you how the metric is actually rolled up. Ontology is the relationship between the various elements in that particular data. It's a join, right? It tells you if you know how are the fields related, how are the tables joined, is it a one-to-many or a many-to-many join? All of that is important for the grounding of the large language models. And finally, you've got governance. The whole point of all of this is to help with analytics, but it's also important that you control who can access what piece of information, who can see, what are the things that they can access, what are the things that needs to be perhaps hidden from view. So all of these 5 components make up the semantic layer. The semantic layer has emerged as the essential building block for any kind of AI-based analytics that you want to do. The WebFOCUS has been using a semantic layer for a very, very long time. It's really the WebFOCUS metadata. The WebFOCUS semantic layer is made up of 2 components, the master file and the access file. The master file is it describes the logic of the structure. It has information about fields. It has in the logical structure, you can also do things like defines, which is creating virtual fields. The nice thing about these virtual fields, you can use them in a query just like actual fields. You can also have computes in the master file. These can be calculated on the fly based on the levels of aggregation you want. The second component is the access file. This is the physical connection details. One thing that's, I would say, special about the WebFOCUS synonym or the master file is it is fairly extensible. So besides describing the data like a metadata layer, you can actually have messages. You can have remarks that are part of the WebFOCUS metadata, and you can have descriptions in multiple languages. So if users are querying the data in or trying to run queries in different languages, that information can be displayed in different languages. So to leverage in order to leverage the WebFOCUS synonym for AI-based analytics, you've got all of the essential components of the semantic layer in the WebFOCUS metadata, the combination of the master file and the access file. The nice thing about the WebFOCUS metadata is it's human readable. It's text-based, right? So if you open it, you can easily understand what's in that master file. The DSML engine or DSML services actually uses the WebFOCUS metadata to ground the natural language query engine. Talking about AI grounding really is about providing context to the query. When you have a semantic layer, the accuracy for the NLQ results jumps to 92%. Without that, it could be as low as 20% because half the time the large language model is trying to guess the relationships and it's not really able to understand and provide the truth. So the semantic layer is solving the AI accuracy problem by moving from prompt-based engineering to context-based engineering. So in this model, using this approach, the large language models are not asked to write SQL. Instead, they are tasked with decomposing a natural language question into the correct combination of predefined metrics and dimensions from the semantic model. So we talked about governance being an important part of the semantic layer. Without governance, organizations cannot enforce things like masking personally identifiable information or personal health information. It also ensures that you have region-based restrictions and role-based data access. Now, you've got cloud database vendors that have actually moved the semantic layer into into their database offering, if you will. In other words, they want to ensure that the semantic layer is not handled by the BI layer, but it's actually handled within the database engine or within their offering. So I'm just doing a comparison here of a couple of the cloud-based vendors, Snowflake, Databricks, and WebFOCUS. You can see what is the governance hub for each of these three vendors, what is the security model used by the vendors, and what's the AI grounding feature. So for Snowflake, you've got row-based access control. Databricks uses something called the attribute-based access control. Again, they're finely grained access control. In the case of the WebFOCUS semantic layer, we can do both row-based access control and column-based access control. The governance hub for WebFOCUS is the reporting server. And the grounding feature is the synonym, because that's where you have the context for the raw data. So just a little bit of an architecture comparison. Now, I do want to point out that semantic layers are not necessarily only handled by cloud database vendors. You've got independent AI modeling platforms and independent layers that sit above the warehouses to provide the semantic layer. So the WebFOCUS approach's synonym is text-based, right? Both access files and master files are text-based. And WebFOCUS has its native adapters. So when the query is sent to the reporting server, it uses the native adapters to then translate the query into whatever is appropriate for the backend. So in other words, it can do not just SQL, but it can also do what is appropriate for the backend database that you're querying. When you think about the cloud semantic layers, here I'm talking, like Snowflake and Databricks. For the most part, it's SQL based, but again, it can support others like DAX and I forget the other one, the newer approaches to querying the data. So let's look at the WebFOCUS platform. Okay, it's a pretty busy slide. Let's build it so we can understand how everything is kind of works together. As I mentioned, WebFOCUS has a number of native adapters. So down at the bottom, you've got your various data sources. It could be cloud-based sources, ERP systems. It could be relational flat files, XML-based, mainframe data sources, you name it. Using the native data adapters, you can get to these different sources. But for doing anything in WebFOCUS, the first step is to create the WebFOCUS synonym, which is the WebFOCUS semantic layer. Once you've got the semantic layer built, oops, wrong direction, you can now make the data available to different data consumers. Now, data consumers are not necessarily humans. The data consumer could be an AI agent. For a lot of the application development, you may not necessarily query some of your backend data sources. Some of them may be querying a data warehouse or a data mart. So as part of the platform, you've got data migrator to do the extract, transform, and load from your backend data sources to build your marts and your warehouses. You can do a complete load into your warehouse, or you can do a delta load using change data capture. For your BI and analytics, the applications are only as good as the data that feeds it. So if you've got some data quality issues in your backend, you don't want to move the data into a warehouse until you've cleansed it. So as part of the data platform, we've got the data intelligence layer. You can address data quality issues. You can do deduplication of the data. You can cleanse the data, standardize, validate. In many cases, augment the data. For example, if you've got pieces of an address, you can again standardize the address. You can even geocode it. So now you can start to build your different applications, whether it's consumed from a portal, self-service tools, or using some of the data science capabilities of WebFOCUS. And you can do different types of analysis, search, interactive dashboards, insights, you name it. So that's, but everything is contingent upon having a semantic layer, which is essential in order to do anything with WebFOCUS. Let's pause here and do a quick demonstration. What I'd like to do is show you how to build some of these hierarchies in the WebFOCUS semantic layer, and then also see how you can reuse or repurpose those metadata to do natural language queries and some of the other machine learning capabilities that's part of the WebFOCUS platform. WebFOCUS ships with a number of sample data sets. And what I've done is I've actually created metadata against, or rather I've loaded the WF Retail database into SQL Server, and I've created the metadata against the SQL Server database. So I've created metadata or pointed to 4 dimension tables: geography, product, store, and time. We can open any one of those in the synonym editors. It shows you all of the components in that particular geography table. I have done the same thing for the other dimension tables like product, store, and time. I also created the metadata for the sales fact table. The sales fact table has the primary keys of the various dimension tables that you can join to, and a number of different metrics. Again, these are independent, individual, or what I would call base metadata layers pointing to, in this case, a single table. When I created the metadata in WebFOCUS, I actually selected the tables, I identified the tables as dimensions and fact, and therefore it automatically created a cluster join for me as well. So let's take a look at this cluster join that was created by joining the 4 dimension tables to the fact table. So in here, what I have is the geography table is actually loaded to the store dimension table. Okay, it's not joined to the fact table because the join is done on the ID geography field. As I mentioned, the process by which I created the metadata also created this cluster view, and the cluster view, it also created a default business view. So you've got the measures up on top, then you've got the dimensions at the bottom. But the default cluster view is, in my opinion, not necessarily business friendly at this point. The reason being, what the default cluster view did is it created subfolders under dimensions, and it grouped together all of the fields that had similar names. So anything with a product was put under this folder called product category, but this may not necessarily be the way that I want to navigate or drill, do my drill when I run my reports. It's not the hierarchical order that I want. So what I also did is I modified the cluster view, the default cluster view, and I created something new that I call test1. And you can see what I call my slightly cleaned up version of the cluster view. So I've got my measures on top. Then I've got 4, or in this case, 5 different dimensions. If I expand the store dimension, you'll notice I've got 2 elements. Basically, what I've done with this business view is, in your table, you may have lots of fields, but to make it business friendly, you can hide or not expose some of those fields for your various applications. So I've kind of cleaned it up and it made it more business friendly. If you look at the store type and I go to the DV role, this shows up as the DV role of dimension drill level. You can see that it's in bold. What that means is it's part of a hierarchy. Store type is the first level of that dimensional hierarchy. The second level of the hierarchy is store name. Again, DV role is dimension drill level. You can see that it's in bold. Because it is underneath store type, it means if I were to run a report and say it grouped by store type, I can auto drill to the next level, which shows me the store name for the store type. So this is how I built my dimensional hierarchies. I've got a plus sign underneath store, because what I've done is I've added some or fields to this dimension. But they are, if you notice, it has got a slightly different icon. These are not part of the dimensional drill level. These are what we call attributes. So attributes are, again, it's got the same property. It's what I will use for sorting purposes, but it's not part of the drill. So this allows me to have a lot more fields that are part of that, the folder, business folder, if you will, but not necessarily part of a dimensional hierarchy. So I've created this store dimension. I've got one for time. Again, if you notice, the dimensional hierarchy here is year, quarter, month, day. And there's an attribute under day called the actual date field itself. Okay, because I may not, if I wanted to sort by the actual date, I could, but this is what I want for my navigation. So how do I build this hierarchy if it wasn't created for me by the default process? Well, the first step is, what, again, on the far left, what you're seeing is the business view. One thing I like to do when I build the business view is also turn on the table column view. So now I can see all the fields from each of the tables, all the fields from the fact table. Then I've got all the fields coming from the product table, from the store table, geography table, and so forth. So what I like to do is I want to create a brand new dimension. I remember a long time ago, one of my customers said they don't do navigation by the product hierarchy. They do what they call navigation by commodity hierarchy. And for them, the commodity hierarchy had to do with, you select a business region, then you look at it by maybe a commodity type, and then by product. Okay, so let's try to mimic that type of dimension. So the first step is I can create a folder underneath the dimension, and I'll call this my commodity dimension, right? So that's a subfolder underneath my dimension hierarchy. So for this commodity hierarchy, the first level is going to be a business region. So let's search for a field, business. Let's take business subregion. I'm going to drag that under commodity dimension. So what's important to make it part of a dimensional hierarchy is ensure that the DV role is dimension drill level. Okay. So the second level of the commodity hierarchy is going to be a commodity. I don't really have a commodity. Let's try brand. Maybe I'll just take brand or brand type, doesn't matter, just selecting one field. Because I added it underneath business subregion, you'll notice that the DV role is automatically highlighting dimension drill level. So that is the second level of my hierarchy. For the third level of my hierarchy, let's select a product component. I'll take product category and add that underneath brand. Again, the DV role should automatically reflect that it's part of a dimension drill level. So you can see how I can start to build multiple hierarchical levels within my dimension. Now, maybe I want to add something like product description under this commodity dimension. So I can go ahead and add that under product category. But didn't want to do that twice. Let's hide this. Okay, I wanted to add product description. Let's move that under product category. Again, product description is not something that I want to drill to, so I'm going to change the DV role to an attribute. When I change the role from a dimension level to an attribute, you'll notice that the icon is a little bit different. You know what, let me close some of these so you can see this a little bit better. Oops, I closed one too many. There we go. Okay, you can see that the icon for product description is a little bit different from the icon for the other three. Now, if I wanted to sort of hide the attributes when I'm building a report, what I could do is select the lowest level of my hierarchy, go to Manage Folders, and say Show Hide Attribute. So now it sort of creates a subfolder, if you will, and I can move the product distribution underneath the attribute. So what this lets me do is when I just look at my dimension, I only see the hierarchical levels, but I can expand the dimension level to also look at any attributes that may be part of this particular dimension. So I've kind of cleaned up my business view. Business view is business friendly. So I only selected fields that, are things that I want to expose to the user. You notice it's got business friendly description. In this case, my metadata was in English, but I could have my metadata column titles in different language. The Focus supports multiple languages. All right, so let's go ahead and save this, this master file. And I'll call this this is the new one, right? Let's call this the new one. I'm going to save it under a particular application folder. And now I'm ready to start building my content using this new business view that I created from the join of 4 dimension tables to a fact table. Let's close out of all of this. Just want to make sure that I saved it correctly. So let's go back to VUG, and there we go. I've got my BV new. Now I'm ready to build some content. I'm going to use Designer to create a visualization. And I'm going to reference the master file that we just saved, or the business view master file that we just saved. There's my business view new, and we are ready to create our visualizations. So there's my store. Notice I've got my commodity dimension. Okay, then I expand that. It shows me my hierarchical levels. Expand the product category. I've got my attributes that I may want to include in my report. So let's start by something simple. Let's say I want to look at my sales or revenue, whatever the measure that I want by business region. Let's actually add another dimensional component, a hierarchical dimensional component. I've got my time dimension. I want to color this by year. And let's make this stacked bar chart. Okay, again, that's up to you, vertical or horizontal stacked bar chart. There you go. Now you can see the sales by the various business regions. And each of these segments or sections represent the year. At this point, I don't have any drill option, right? Turning on auto drill is pretty straightforward. In the middle section, underneath your, where you have done your field selection, if you go to interactivity, just check the box drill anywhere, and now it turns on, sorry, not drill anywhere, I want to do auto drill because I wanted to show how hierarchy works. And back to my query, I think I'm all good. You know what, I'm going to sort this by in the descending order for the business subregion. So it becomes sort of like a ranking chart. At this point, if I highlight any section, now you can see that the drill has been enabled, and I've got 2 drill options. I can go down the hierarchical path for the time, which would be from year to the next level, which is quarter, or from the business region to the brand, which is part of the new commodity hierarchy. And you notice that I have, again, 2 options. I can just go, so I'm going to choose the drill path, but this time I will select brand, but I don't want to do filters. And you'll see the difference in the 2 in a moment. So having selected a business region, you can see the breadcrumb trail on top, the navigation. How did I get to this report? I selected the West business region, showing me all the brand, the sales or revenue for the different brands within the West region. At this point, if I were to select quarter, but I do quarter with filter, notice I've highlighted the year 2025. When I select the drill path using filter, it's going to run the report, but for only 2025. Okay, so that's the difference between doing a drill with filter with versus doing a drill without the filter, which shows me the different level in the hierarchy for just the one component, but not the other hierarchy that I have in my data set, which was time-based. So creating the metadata with hierarchy is pretty straightforward, and enabling the auto drill is again nothing more than checking this box under interactivity. And you can see how the hierarchy that you've defined in your master file is now used by the business users as they start to run reports. I'm not going to save this report, but you can see how we did both, enhance the metadata as well as build some content. The next step, I want to show you another metadata file, but this time I want to do something a little bit different. So let's go back to our application folder. In fact, this time I'm going to a different application folder because there's a different file that I want to look at. I've got this file called BV contracts. Let's open that. I mentioned that one of the building blocks of the semantic layer is metrics. And I use the word metrics rather than measures on purpose. In your base tables, you may have fields that have the characteristic of a measure. It's something that you aggregate. It's a count or an amount. But a metric can be a little bit more than that. It can be a calculation. Notice in this master file, I've actually got a calculation. So when I select a field in my report called total cost, it's actually the product. It does a calculation. It multiplies the quantity and the unit price to give me the total cost. This could be a define. It could be a compute. Only difference is it calculated post aggregation or is it calculated when you query the data sets? Okay, so if you've been using WebFOCUS for a while and you've got some old master files, I'm sure you've got a lot of defines, some of which could be metric calculations. This particular metadata also has another feature. It's got what I call DBA security built into it. So what I've done with this file is you'll notice that I've got a section here that I've there are a number of users and there are certain restrictions for each of those users. So I've got a user called, it's basically a virtual user group, North America user. I built an entire application using this particular synonym. And when you run this application logged in as the North American user, the data is automatically filtered for only those records with location code equal to 100. For the Europe user, the location code is filtered for the value of 200. Similarly, I've got one for the China user. Okay, so notice the DBA security in here is the governance component that we talked about in the semantic layer. This is restricting data based on the filter criteria. Now I have another user. I call this user the VUG basic China. It's a slightly different role. This user has two restrictions. Again, the data for this application is going to be filtered for location codes equal to 300. But there is, besides the filter, notice there is an X next to contract number. So here what I've done is I've got a no print restriction on a field called contract number. In my data set, I didn't really have any PII information, but that said, for applications, sometimes it's not necessarily a personally identifiable information, but there may be certain users who can't see certain levels of information. So in this case, rather than saying they cannot access contract number, I made this a no print. And you'll see in a moment when I run the application what happens when this user actually runs, what is the view for this particular user. All right, so having explored some aspects of the metadata, creating business views, showing metrics calculation business views, and some of the governance capability of the synonym layer. Now let's go to the application. So for application, actually let's jump right into a portal that I created for today. Currently, I've logged in as administrator. So you're going to look at everything that this administrator can see. This administrator has no restrictions for this data set that we just looked at. So I can look at all my business locations, China, Europe, North America. Again, because I have access to all of the locations in the self-service app, I could pick and choose anything that I want, any location that I want to filter on, or any customer. And then obviously you can see the different types of content on this page, including one that shows me all of the contracts for Europe. There are things that I can do. Rather than look at all contracts, I can say, show me just the top contracts. Notice how that report is now in this particular container, if you will. This application has two different tabs. I've got what I call the sales summary view, and I've also got the sales explorer view. Again, the idea here was to show you that some users can look at the global sales summary across all locations, all business regions. And I've also added another component called explore data. If you've been using the hub, you may be familiar with this concept here. If you click on start something new, there's an explore data option. So the explore data option basically takes me to, actually, where was I? I was in, I wanted to be in the WebFOCUS Semantic virtual user group, explore data. And I've got a file that I would like to explore. Again, whatever you do with WebFOCUS, whether it's explore the data or use like a designer tool to build content, you have to first reference the master file or the synonym that you want to query. Explore data is a natural language query option within WebFOCUS. I've selected a master file, but in order to begin, I think it'll be helpful if I knew what was in that master file. So I can see all my fields in this master. Now I can start to ask my question. So, so the question that I want to ask here is, let's say, some sales by product category, right? So because I know what's in this data set, I can select the fields that I want to include to build my query or ask my question in this case, and then it gives me the result. So the natural language query, I'll get into more detail what happens behind the scenes in a moment. But what it does is it looks at the question, the text that was put in, it generates a SQL, then there's something else that happens, finally gives me the answer set. The NLQ engine determines what's the best way to represent the data, what's the best visual way to represent the data. So in this case, it's chosen to represent this as a pie chart. But you can toggle if you want to see the numbers. You can always switch to kind of the tabular view versus the chart view. There's also an option to view suggestions. So rather than type a question, you can always go to view suggestions and try some of the suggestions that are available. So this one, average unit price by industry. Again, these are suggestions. It may or may not necessarily result in a report. Actually, this wasn't an interesting question because I only had one industry in my data set, which was aerospace. Right? Let's try something different. Okay, max total cost by customer. Again, this is one of the suggestions. Let's see if this results in a data set. Okay, it's chosen to display this data as a bar chart. Again, I can toggle, so I can view the numbers or the tabular view, if you will, versus the visual representation of this result. Again, like I said, lots and lots more suggestions. Let's try something different. Monthly sales comparison. Okay, Let's see if that produces a result. So the visualization choice has to do with the question that is asked, because I've done this question asked for monthly sales comparison. It did it as a line chart. Let's actually pause for a moment and think about this particular query. In my data set, I did have, if I go here, a field called sales, but I don't have anything called month. Do I? Nope, I don't have anything called month. Yet, my question was monthly sales comparison. I'm going to rerun this query, but this time I'm going to show you the query, what happened behind the scenes, the query details, if you will, so you can understand how it was translated. So the first thing that this NLQ engine does is it takes your text, converts it into SQL, right? But it looks at the semantic layer and then sees what's in the semantic layer that is appropriate for the SQL query. So it's not, like I said, it provides context, but it's not just an exact word-for-word conversion. So what did it do for this question, monthly sales comparison? It looked at the year, because that's what I had in my contract date, extract month from, there's a field called contract date in my data set. So it knew, because it was a date field, I could do a comparison, a monthly or yearly comparison. Then it also did group by month. This is the first step, the translation from text to SQL. The next step is that SQL is now converted to focus code, and you can see the focus code that is generated. Okay, some monthly sales from group by, other things that is needed. Then this focus code goes to the reporting server. What the reporting server does is, first of all, it knows what synonym it's querying, right? It knows the access file associated with that synonym, and therefore it knows how to translate that code into whatever is appropriate for the backend. If it is relational, it's going to translate the SQL into the SQL dialect for that particular relational database. But if I was querying SAP, for instance, it's going to do not SQL, but ABAP. So that's the beauty of the native adapters within the WebFOCUS. The reporting server, which is the engine, knows how to take the basic focus code and translate it into whatever is appropriate for that particular backend. Once all that is done, you get your answer set, which is this visual. So all of these, I did not use Designer to build or ask these questions, right? I mean, yeah, the first one I actually typed in something, I prompted it, but the rest I actually took the suggestions that were in here and just ran those queries. If you like one of these, you think it's great, you can go ahead and save those into your workspace. There's another component that's part of the DSML capabilities of WebFOCUS. This was the NLQ option. There's the Insights option. The Insights option is something that's done automatically. You don't have to ask a single question. The DSML engine looks at the patterns in the data. In this particular case, you notice that I've got 3 groupings. The first one, the single column, is looking for patterns for a particular column. So it's shown me this. It's looked at all of the, again, in this case, the number of occurrence, if you will. So most of the records are tied to aerospace fittings and couplings. That's the most number. But then I've got other findings, right? This is the product category and this is the subcategory. I've got another one. This is telling me that Airbus is the most frequent value of customer. For this particular data set, it also starts to look at the relationship between pairs of columns. Again, there are a lot of reports that is provided kind of, I don't want to say out of the box, but it's done automatically without the users running a single query. If any of these are something that you feel you would like to add in your BI application all you got to do is add it to your workspace, bring it into your, as you're assembling your dashboard, and then bring it into your portal. Miscellaneous, again, this is looking at correlation between all the different pairs of columns in this data set. What auto insights displays is going to vary depending on your data. All of these are the AI capabilities of WebFOCUS merely by pointing to the semantic layer that we had. Again, didn't require a user to know focus language, didn't need to know how to build something in any of the tools. These were insights that were auto-generated. I showed this because I think where we really started is we went to the VUG portal, and you notice that I can actually add the Explore Data widget into my dashboard page. Okay, so this is the exact same data we looked at. The contract details, view suggestions, these are all the suggestions that we looked at. I've embedded this Explore Data component into this dashboard. But when you embed this component in the dashboard, the nice thing about it is I can restrict what are the master files that I would like to expose to the user. So in this case, I've got a couple of different files that I've exposed to the user, right? Just want to run something different from within the Explorer widget using one of the suggestions that was provided in here. And let's see if there you go, it provided some content. So this portal view, or this, currently I'm logged in as an administrator. I've got a summary view, and I've got what I call the Explorer view. Let's log out, and let's sign back in as one of the users that I had added within my DBA security layer. Let's try the North America user. Okay, and there's my portal for the North American user. Notice that this particular sales summary dashboard is pre-filtered for North America, because in my metadata, I had a DBA rule that restricted the North American user to a particular value for, I think it was called location code, and the location code corresponded to the location description of North America. I've got all the details, right? I can still see all my customers. I can still see the top contracts for all my customers in North America. In fact, I can even see the contract number, but my data is restricted for the North America location. Let's sign out. Let's try one other user. Let's try VUG China. The exact same application, pre-filtered for China, but I can see all the contact details. One thing you'll notice is I've got another layer of security. This is, I would say, application level, which just made, which ensured that these users could only view the sales dashboard, but not the second component. Again, I could have enabled it, but that was done at the application level, not at the metadata level. So for the last one, which is the basic user, I think it was VUG China basic, or basic China. All right, let's try. This particular user had two restrictions. The first one limited the data for only the China location. You may recall that I also had a restriction on contract number. It was a no print. Okay, so even though I can see the contract value, the dates, I can't see the contract number. Again, your application may choose not to show this entire top contracts report, but I just wanted to show how governance works in the metadata layer. Okay, you can hide certain fields. You can you can restrict access to certain fields. So in this particular case, I just chose to hide certain fields, not necessarily restrict. That's why I could still run this report called top contracts, but it's not showing me the contract details. Right? Okay, let's switch back to the slideshow. Again, if you have questions, I can pause before I continue on with the presentation, or you can ask the questions at a later point. I don't think we have any questions right now. All right. So sort of to recap or come full circle, we looked at what are the basic components of a semantic layer, right? You've got dimension, metrics, hierarchies, ontology, governance. All of those are in the WebFOCUS synonym as well. The dimensions, I just put it as base metadata because these are not calculations. They are, what I would call the fields, but you can have defines, virtual columns that you could use in your reports. Metrics are calculated fields. This is something that you can definitely add onto the WebFOCUS synonym. Hierarchies are defined in the business views. The ontology is the join editor. So anytime I have a cluster master file or a business view, I can actually see the table joins. I could actually click on the link between the join tables to look at how are the tables joined. And the governance is handled by the DB security section, if you will, of the WebFOCUS synonym. So all of the essential components of a semantic layer that is needed for AI analytics is available in the WebFOCUS synonym. Again, as I mentioned, governance could be restricting values or restricting fields. This was the master file that we used. I just chose to do a no print rather than restrict on field names. So to answer the question, is WebFOCUS AI ready? You bet it is, right? We saw that in our NLQ example. So what happens behind the scenes? The text is translated into SQL, which is then converted into the focus code that is sent to the reporting server. The reporting server then knows how to address or what to do with that focus code, which, what is the appropriate dialect for that backend to then retrieve your answer set. The suggestion for the visual is provided by the NLQ engine. If it's a trend, it typically shows it as a line. If it's got too many elements, it may. Again, if you don't want to know what is the ranking, a pie chart is a good option versus a bar chart. Again, these are just suggestions. Once you save it into your workspace, you can make the changes you want for your application or within your application. So let's look at the advantages of the WebFOCUS semantic layer. We mentioned it's text-based, which means you can actually, version control your metadata. I've been saving my metadata as version 1 and version 2 as I've been refining my cluster views and business views. But if you have it, with the Git operations, you can actually version control this because you may have different people working on different metadata files. And a more important part is the level of abstraction that this metadata layer provides. So what happens if you change a backend, you build your entire application against this Oracle data set, and you decide to move from Oracle to Snowflake? Do you have to rewrite your entire application? Not really, because the abstraction of the metadata layer just means that if your Snowflake, when you create a Snowflake table, you can call it the same master file, but you change your access file to now point to not Oracle, but to the Snowflake connection. There may be some changes. Again, it depends on your very specific application and what logic you built into the actual report itself. But for the most part, very, very minimal remediation is required to switch from one backend to the other. Now, WebFOCUS metadata is only accessible to WebFOCUS, even though it's text-based. And there's obviously an open standards um, process, if you will, to standardize on this metadata. It's going to be fairly easy to take the WebFOCUS synonyms, which is text-based, use maybe some Python code to get it into the open standards. Okay, so it's easy to do. Right now, the synonym, the way it exists, is only accessible to the WebFOCUS reporting engine. I mentioned multilingual NLQ. I'm running 937. Right now, we only support English for the natural language query, but we're working on supporting other languages. So there is two aspects to NLQ support: translating text in English to SQL or whatever language to SQL, and then there is the second component of translating that SQL into what is appropriate for the different technical dialect of the backend. We handle that today already. I think one of the most important aspects of the WebFOCUS metadata is human readability. You want to troubleshoot something, I get trying to run a report, you're doing comparison to an alpha field and you even put a quotes around the value that it passed, right? Quickly, I see the master file, reference line 47 or something like that. I know instantly what the issue is, and I can troubleshoot it both from my application end as well as if something needs to be done at the metadata level. Many of our customers are on a data modernization journey. I think I still have some time. I'm almost nearing the end of my presentation. Um, uh, Customers are now moving from on-premise data to more cloud data sources. And we touched upon this as one of the benefits, if you will, of the text-based or abstraction layer of WebFOCUS metadata. First step is to do a discovery. If your application runs on the reporting server side, you can do an impact analysis and see what are all the fixes that query the master file. If your application runs on the client side, then you can use the search capability to figure out what are the different reports and other assets that query that particular master file. So identifying what would be impacted when you change the backend is your first step. It's a discovery step. The second step to address that is to switch the ACX, the access file, to now point to the new backend data, which could be a cloud-based data source. The grounding is exposing the synonym to AI gateway. This is why we encourage our customers to go to release 9, because the DSML functionality wasn't introduced until version 9, and particularly 9.3 is when we added a lot more capability, including bundling the 937 WebFOCUS with a new small language model, the Microsoft 5.4 small language model. And then activation is deploy NLQ. You saw how I've added the expose data widget within my one of the portals that I created. So I can allow business users to now use that NLQ interface to explore a new data set. Another advantage of the WebFOCUS approach to the metadata is keeping data where it lives. The reality is, within any enterprise, you may have a mixture of on-prem data and with the newer cloud-based subscription model, for whether ERP systems or even cloud-based data sources, some of this data could be in different clouds. Okay? So there is this hybrid cloud data assets that you need to report from. The reporting server can be close to where your data is, okay? Ensuring that the data is not moved to another data set. In many cases, there are compliance requirements for GDPR or HIPAA requirement, and residency laws that prevent data moving from, say, one region to another. So the reporting server can reside close to where the data is, and the client end is on the cloud. So in terms of being able to query, you can query data that's on AWS versus Azure versus on-prem. Doesn't really matter. The metadata layer can get to the data where it resides without the data moving into one particular data store. That's really all I had for today's session. Um, like I said, this is a topic. Metadata and semantic layer is something that I've always um, found interesting. And in today's era where every conversation is about AI-fueled analytics, you can be assured that everything that you built in the IBI stack, particularly the governance that you built in the IBI stack, can be leveraged, and you can jumpstart your AI journey with WebFOCUS. Thank you. I'll open it up for questions at this point.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anita. And I thoroughly apologize when my microphone came unmuted earlier. Apologies for that. Anita, you do have two questions here for you. The first one is, it appears that we would be able to create a cluster view of Microsoft Fabric dimension and metrics model data. Do you have any information of WebFOCUS Semantic Layer building against the MS Fabric?
So I think the MS Fabric support is not a 937, but it's, I believe, coming in the next 938. But yes, yeah. So not in the current release.
Okay.
Okay.
The next one is, a few years ago, there was some talk of business views possibly being phased longer term. Will the business views continue to be the standard for semantic organization, or is something else on the way as well?
We're going to continue support for business views. Like I said, the business views is a critical component of when you're defining hierarchies, right? Um, not at this point. I don't see any. Yeah, we'll continue to support the business views.
Okay, great. Well, that was the two questions submitted. Does anyone else have any additional questions for Anita today? I'll give you guys a second in case you're thinking of that. Just in the meantime, as a reminder, today's webinar was recorded. You will receive a copy of this recording along with the presentations tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that in your inbox. And of course, we'd love to have you guys at Summit. I believe, Anita, you're covering a session on Semantic Layer at Summit. Yes.
That's correct.
So yeah, so if you guys want to come see this in person, we'd love to have you. Anita would love to see you in her breakout session for that. So again, let us know if you have any questions about Summit. We'd love to have you guys there. Thank you for all this information, Anita. What a person posted.
Yeah, just wanted to add that the Summit metadata session, I believe, is a lab. So you can
Oh, it's a
actually
lab.
play
Okay.
with it. Yeah, we can walk you through building the business views and a whole lot more.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so even better, it's a hands-on lab. So you get that hands-on experience with it. All right, last call for questions. I want to thank you, Anita, for presenting today. Appreciate all of the knowledge and content that you bring. It was a great presentation, and thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you all who were able to attend today. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us. And if there are no further questions, we'll give you about 15 minutes back of your time, and we'll see you next month at our June virtual user group, or hopefully we'll see you in person at Summit. All right, everyone, take care.